my gosh, we're actually recording, Max. I can't believe we're actually doing this.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Start Your Podcast Now. I am Paul, the podcast guy. As you can see above, it says Paul pointing an arrow at me. The best jokes always have to be explained. Max Gutierrez next to me from Pensacola Athletic Center. He takes care of their social media. Today you're going to get kind of a twofer, not just because we have actually two people on the podcast, but because we're kind of going over two topics. I will admit, and I come from the world of talk radio, where we're always taught to admit our mistakes, and my backpack with my interface, which connects to the nice recording software, is sitting in my living room at the moment. So I said, you know what, gosh darn it, we're going to do the thing that I tell people to do. Start your podcast now and use the things that are around you. You have a cell phone. I have camera audio, so we're actually recording this on the cell phone right now, and we're using the microphone from the camera. So if you have an excuse of, I don't have the right equipment around me to start doing a podcast, this is the podcast that is going to eliminate that excuse right now. But the second thing that we're going to talk about, and the thing that Max actually is really, really good at, is social media. We're going to talk about being the kind of person on social media that you want to be. Max, tell them what you do for Pensacola Athletic Center, and well, do in general, actually.
Well, let me start off with a little bit of background on myself. I moved here with my wife a few years ago, started up a fitness center, and then got recruited to basically rebrand and remarket an entire fitness center, a fitness center that had been around for about 30 plus years, and there was just no online presence. You couldn't find it on Google. You couldn't find us on Instagram. You couldn't find us on Facebook. You just couldn't find us. So with that, it was a very mom and pop shop type fitness center. We didn't really have a big budget for marketing. We didn't have a big budget to go hire a company and spend thousands of dollars each month. So we had to figure a lot of this stuff out on our own. And in the last few years, it's nice because we've been able to develop a presence online and really kind of make a name for ourselves. And not only that, but because we've kind of did that whole transition with marketing, we've been able to almost put our members on a pedestal and showcase them, which I know that they've really appreciated in return.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, that's actually a really, really good point, and kind of something that I think a lot of the business podcasts would do really well to keep in mind. Because a lot of you might want to do a podcast for your business, whatever your business may be. Maybe you're a carpet company. I don't know. But putting that emphasis on the people that you serve really makes the social media fun. Because, okay, I'll give you an example. And my pastor gave me this one years ago. He said, when you are handed a photograph of you in a huge group of people, who's the first person you look for? Yourself.
Oh, yourself? Yeah.
Of course. You're the first person that you look for. So when you showcase your customers, it makes them feel special. Make them look for themselves. And social media it's exactly that. It's social. You want to feel like you're part of a group. So tell me about some of the things that you guys, I've watched some of the videos you guys did, by the way. Look up Pensacola Athletic Center on Instagram, and you guys are on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. Those are really the two media outlets that we use.
They're great. They do videos. They're fun videos. You did one that was like a silent film.
Yeah, we did that. But
talk about the creative process a little bit about coming up with some of these posts.
Well, so I come from near Los Angeles area. And in that area, the market is so saturated with fitness centers. Mm-hmm. So yours always has to stand out. It has to be very creative.
Right.
So whatever it is that you do, you want to showcase it. And when we took over the PAC, or Pensacola Athletic Center, we really liked the whole dynamic. It was a very family-oriented fitness center. I don't know, it just felt like a second home for a lot of the members, new and existing. So that's all we did. We just wanted to showcase that. We wanted to tell its story, and I think when we started, we kind of needed a little bit of guidance. But in the last, I would say, 6-7 months, we've been able to do just that, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I think that it's a good idea. Then let's talk about some specific things that people can do. Whether you want to do your podcast for your business, whether you want to do your podcast for yourself, you have to be the kind of person that people want to follow and interact with.
Absolutely.
And I point to social media accounts all the time of some of my favorite ones. Wendy's is an obvious example. Wendy's that actually responds to individuals.
Yeah.
Just the other day I saw the one, somebody said, why do you guys make square patties? That ain't natural. And Wendy's responded to that individual with, oh yes, just like the round patties that are picked off of the vine. That's so natural, of course. And they're great throwing shade. Oh my gosh. And they respond to individuals, and there are other ones that do it in a more friendly way, other ones that do it in a, like they'll feature people in videos, like they'll take a screenshot of somebody and put it into like one of those jib jab videos. But they make people feel special. So let's talk about some tips that you can do, you personally can do to make your social media presence something worth following. What's a good tip that you could give people?
So the good tip is to start.
Fair enough.
Start.
I like that.
Quit worrying about what others' opinions of you, your business, whatever your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Quit worrying about that and really focus on trying to reveal yourself. And really, social media is just an outlet. Yeah. You can do blogs, you can do podcasts, you can do social media, whatever it is that you want to do. It's just about getting started. And then once you're getting started, figure out a way that you can be consistent. Some people want to do this every single day. Some people want to do it Friday through Monday or Friday through Saturday, whatever it is. But just figure out your level of consistency, and really just it's your time to showcase yourself, what you stand for, your beliefs, and really kind of what drives you. And I think one thing that's been really powerful for me is it's funny because I went to a recent seminar held by Mallory Whitfield here at the Annex in Pensacola. But she spoke on something that really hit home, and it was when people do business with you, they don't really buy what you're selling, they buy why you're selling it. And I feel like with us, what we stand for, our beliefs, it's really just about family, and it's really about helping others. And I think that's why people have really been so supportive over at Pensacola Athletic Center, or personally with myself, and it's just been a lot of fun. So those are my couple tips, is get started and be consistent and really just showcase yourself and who you are and what you stand for.
I like that. And you actually referenced something that I touched on, I think, a couple times now. So for you few stragglers who have still not watched the TED Talk, Simon Sinek, The Why of Business, he talks about businesses that are successful that have a why. You can talk about things from the what inside to the why, or you can talk about things from the why outside to the what. And the example that he uses a couple of examples, but the primary one that sticks out with me, and that why Apple has been so successful, because they start with the why. So if Microsoft were going to come out, and sorry Microsoft, I do use your products, I really do. I'm not a Mac guy, I'm actually a PC guy. You're a Mac guy. That's fine. We're like the Justin Long and John Hodgman, the old Mac versus PC. But Microsoft's products are advertised really poorly, I think, because they start from the what and go inside. They start with, our products are well designed, they're easy to use, you can spend so much money for them, do you want to buy them? And the Mac starts with the why. They say everything that you do should be a reflection of your inner self. They do things like, you already know how to use it. They start with the why. They start with the caring about your needs and your processes, and then they go to the what. And they're much more successful in that respect. I mean, Apple, even though they didn't include a headphone jack on their last phone, is still going to be $1 trillion company at some point.
Right.
And Samsung's next phone is not going to have a jack either, so I don't know why everybody's following that method. But anyway, starting with the why is a great principle. And if you haven't watched that TED Talk, my gosh, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it right now.
I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen it either? I cannot recommend. But here's the thing, you already know the principle. And that was something that was transformative for me as a writer, as a producer, as a production guy, was starting with the why.
Yep.
And I think also on social media, because the last episode I talked about being yourself and being yourself behind the microphone. And it was a lot more about techniques for being yourself and being the best yourself. How to speak, how to keep energy up. And the last tip was the one that was, don't be afraid of what people have to say. Because Max, you've experienced negative comments online, I'm sure. We all have.
Everybody has.
Everybody has.
I think one of the biggest things that had me is, so I grew up in California. I grew up playing baseball, competitive baseball, played a little semi-pro, I guess, if you want to say,
Right.
and really was based out of Canada for a little while. And then I came home due to an injury, so I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I needed to make money because I had bills to pay. So I got into sales, and one of the first things that I got introduced to was almost like a life and health insurance type company. And I didn't really know that many people. All my buddies, were not planning, they weren't worried about that. So I started doing door-to-door sales. And door-to-door sales, man, I mean, let me tell you, if you're looking for something to get some thick skin, door-to-door sales, where people slamming their door right in front of your face, opening the curtain so you can see them, and closing the curtain and just completely avoiding you.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience, and so if somebody's typing something on their phone or responding via email, any hate mail or anything negative, you take it with a grain of salt and actually take it as feedback. Maybe there's something in that you can do to better yourself, better your podcast, better your Instagram, social media, everything.
That's a great point, and one I actually don't think I've touched on yet, which is having a thick skin doesn't mean that you don't get insulted. It just kind of determines how you react to things and how you internalize them. There are people who say, I have rhino skin, and will fly off the handle at the smallest insult. I think the thing that makes the difference is the kind of person who doesn't get offended by negative criticism is somebody who can weed out good criticism from bad criticism. Because we all need criticism. I listened back to my last podcast and I heard things that I could have done better. In fact, one of the points I gave was listen to yourself and excise those things that you say unnecessarily. Things for me are and I've heard myself do it about 8 times so far in this podcast alone and about 10 times in the last one. You need to have criticism, and don't just think about the source of the criticism either. You might get criticized from somebody who is a massive jerk. It's gonna happen. But still look for, is there something in their criticism that is valid? Because criticism can come from anywhere. And what you have to do is be able to separate out the person who's giving you the criticism versus the criticism itself. Because the criticism that you get could be transformative in what you do.
Absolutely. I think one of the big things when I first got into sales is that I had so many people around me, just people that I really cared about, family and friends, and I felt like they were almost being maybe a little. They were almost being like haters towards what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily because they didn't like what I was doing. I figured out down the road as I matured and learned a lot from life experiences that they weren't hating on what I was doing. They were just trying to protect me from failure. And that's okay. I actually embrace failure. I do. I mean, I think that's just one of the ways that we grow. And not saying that I go out specifically to fail sometimes. But it's just a learning curve. That's really what it is.
Yeah, it is. And there are people who will take a criticism and say, oh yeah, and they go on and they become world-beating successes. And there are other people who take criticism and they internalize it and it defeats them. One of the best examples I can think of the psyching out was in 2001, my family and I went to London, and the only thing on was Wimbledon. And we watched so much Wimbledon tennis. And I remember watching tennis player Andy Roddick was an incredible tennis player. He had, at that point, the fastest serve in history. And I watched it was a 146-mile-an-hour serve. He was a monster, but he got a bad call partway through one of the matches, and it psyched him out for the rest of the game. And he didn't even finish in the top 20, I think.
Wow.
Now, we can take criticism, and we can internalize it and start to dwell on it and think that we're not worthwhile. And maybe this is something where somebody needs further help. I don't know. But I think we all need at points in our lives to realize that if we just let ourselves get psyched out, we're not going to do a big, incredible thing. Andy Roddick still had the fastest serve. Doesn't mean he was in the top 20. Doesn't mean that he was a world-beating success, because there were people who weren't as fast and weren't as powerful and weren't as strong, but were able to overcome all those things in order to become the world-beating successes. So if you're going to do this kind of thing, figure out what you need to do, a technique, because when you get on social media, you're going to get criticized. It's going to happen. When you do your podcast, you're going to get criticized. And you have to know how to weed out the bad from the good and how not to get psyched out by it. And I don't know what that is for you. Everybody's different. For me, it was not that big of a deal. When I was in talk radio, I had to develop a thick skin. I used to get so bummed out by criticism that thinking that, oh, well, apparently I didn't get this on my first try. And if you've ever seen the movie Young Sherlock Holmes, there's a scene where the young Watson walks in and he sees young Sherlock Holmes sitting at the edge of the bed in this dorm practicing violin. And he's making this horrible screeching sound. And Holmes goes to smash the violin out of frustration. And Watson says, wait, don't do that. That looks expensive. What's the problem? What's going on? He says, well, I should have mastered this stupid thing by now. Says, well, how long have you been practicing? 3 days. You're not going to get things right away. You're not going to get things right away, and you're going to have to accept these failures as part of what you do. I put stuff up on social media thinking I was being all funny and clever, and people came back and ripped me to shreds over something. Yep. But instead of deleting it and tucking my tail between my legs, I post up, you know what, that was a really good point. I didn't think it all the way through, and I really appreciate what you said. Mm-hmm. And you're going to do one of two things there. If the person was looking to genuinely give you something, they're going to be really appreciative that you listened to them.
Absolutely.
Or if they're just looking to be a jerk, you're going to deflate them, and it's going to be way worse for them, which is funny. So you have to be aware of the fact that people are going to look to either build you up and they don't know how to do it in a way that's nice, which I experienced a lot in talk radio. I had consultants who would tell me that show sucked. And I'd say, oh, well, what sucked about it? And they would say this, and this. And, oh, cool. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try my best to not do that again. But, I would actually disagree with you on this point. I think this made me more relatable. But let me get your thoughts on why you don't think it did. And I would take those things. You have to be, I would tell this to new producers in talk radio all the time, you have to be like Jiminy Cricket with Asperger's syndrome. And I know that sounds weird, but let me explain. So Jiminy Cricket is the voice he's the conscience, right? He's the one that sits on your shoulder and tells you what to do. But someone with Asperger's syndrome doesn't have the same filters and doesn't understand sarcasm in the same way that somebody else would. So they just say it. And they're not meaning to be mean. I had a friend in high school who had Asperger's syndrome, and he would just say, oh, that painting sucks. And you had to realize he wasn't doing it because he didn't like you. He actually liked you a lot. He was doing it because he didn't think that painting was any good. And it's okay. And so you have to say, oh, really? Well, what do you think sucks about this painting? And you say, well, this, and you could have done this better in this shading. Like, okay, well, cool. Well, I'll go back and I'll try again. And that's how they would interact. And so I tell people, you have to be Jiminy Cricket with Asperger's syndrome. You have to be the conscience with no filter. And so when somebody gives you that kind of feedback, how are you going to take it? Because it's on you to react the right way. And there are great examples of social media, people reacting the right way and reacting the wrong way. Amp company Mesa Boogie deleting comments from people who criticize their products, I think to their own detriment, and others like Wendy's who get a criticism and they respond in a funny way. Yep. And others that say, you know what, you're making a good point, I'm sorry.
I like that. I like when companies utilize sarcasm as like a little punchback.
Yes.
I love it. I wish more people did that. And I feel like a lot of businesses are so afraid. Or they're so afraid to respond because they're afraid of the negative connotation or any type of publicity that it'll get. And it's just not a way to think nowadays.
No.
I feel like everything was so customer service based, maybe starting 20, 30 years ago, that it almost scared businesses from doing the wrong thing because of negative publicity. But there's ways to where you can say what you want. You just have to word everything the right way. It's the timing is, you got to watch out for timing. Yeah. And I think knowing a little bit of background on who that specific consumer or customer is, I think that has a lot to do with it too.
It does. The idea that the customer is always right is actually a pretty recent phenomenon. Mm-hmm. There were plenty of examples of companies ignoring focus groups and then coming out with a world-beating product. The Ford Taurus was actually one of those products. If I remember correctly, they had done some focus group testing Ford had done some of the new focus group testing on their product, and they got feedback from people saying, we would like this in a car, we'd like this in a car. And Ford said, we think that's not right. We shouldn't put that in a car, that's stupid. And they came out with the Ford Taurus, and it was a huge seller. So there are going to be times in life where you're going to get a customer, and there are plenty of examples of customers being unreasonable.
Yep.
And you know what? Again, that's okay. It really is, because if you're responding to somebody being unreasonable and doing something that's detrimental, you don't have to capitulate immediately. Somebody says, I demand to get such and such from your company. Like, they come back and they don't have a receipt, and there's no record of them purchasing the product. And they want to say, well, I demand to get my money back for this. Well, we show no record of you purchasing this. Well, I demand you satisfy me. Well, no. That's not, I'm sorry, but our company policy is that if you don't have a receipt, there's no record of you purchasing it, we're not giving you the money back.
Right.
You don't immediately capitulate to everybody just because they come in with demands.
Right.
Because then you're going to get, especially in the world of media and artistic endeavors, because people will walk over you. People demand free things all the time. I'm sure, I can't imagine you've never experienced somebody asking for something for free unreasonably.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, from family to friends to, business, everything and anything in between. And sometimes giving away stuff is not bad.
Sure.
If you do it for the right reasons, it'll always come back and make its way back to you. But well, you just can't give people what they want all the time.
No, and I've offered free things as kind of an introductory thing. I say, look, the first commercial I make for you is going to be free, or the first podcast I'm going to give you so much off, or I'm going to waive my fee for travel fees, whatever it happens to be. But that's a decision that you make as a podcaster, as a production person, as a writer, whatever you are, whatever you do. You don't have to give away your services. People will demand it. And for some reason in this business, and this is, by the way, social media, because we are talking social media here, people are going to ask for things for free in social media. You're going to get requests. People are like, can you make this drawing for free? No, my charge is $50 per drawing. Well, but I follow you and I will get you so much exposure. The word exposure means dying in the wilderness and really not much else to me. So whenever somebody says they're going to give you exposure, I immediately think of I'm getting frozen in Alaska and dying. Because people will offer you that. They have 100 Instagram followers and they're going to give you so much exposure in exchange for your services and your products. Don't do that. Don't do that. I have done plenty of free things as a musician, as a production person, as a voiceover person, but they've always been, well, for the most part, past a certain point, because at first I did capitulate a couple times, and after a while I realized it was stupid. But I've done it on my own terms. I realized I can go up to a venue and say, hey, this first concert we're going to do is for free, but we would ask that we get so much percentage of profits the next time we come through, and let's book that now. Do things that guarantee yourself an income. Don't just do the thing for free, because people are going to demand it of you, and on social media, you'll have to know how to react. One thing, and I don't know, maybe you've seen this, I think the trend right now is to kind of out people who do become choosy beggars. I've seen plenty of people on Reddit, on Facebook, who have said, I want to get this thing for free, and you say no, and they become unreasonable, and you say, fine, well, I'll post this up for the world to see.
I think today's world, if you utilize social media, within time, people are going to see what your true colors are. They're going to see what you stand for. Whether it's via your comments, pictures that you post, videos that you put up, whatever it is that any content that you put up, or that you're constantly endorsing, it just shows who you are as a person. Whether it's good, bad, whether you have spiritual beliefs, whether you don't, whatever it is that you do, whether you're a family person or not, whether you're a business person or not, anything, you get exposed. And I think that's actually really cool. It just kind of weeds out some of the crap and some of the BS that people try to tell you about. Especially, my favorite thing is when you think someone or a business stands for something, and when you actually start paying attention, it's totally opposite. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah,
Yep.
I have seen that. I think that there are depressing examples of that, of where you think that a business really either has heart or cares, but it's a veneer. This is why I talk about being yourself on a podcast and being yourself on social media, because it's so hard to not be yourself.
Right.
I think you have to be the best yourself you can be, and if you want to be a successful business, if you want to have a successful podcast, I think you do have to be likable in a certain way. But I think that you can play off of your own personality in a way that makes sense. So I'll give you an example of, if you're the kind of person that when somebody asks you the why of your business, you just say, I want to make money. And even when you get down to the heart of it, like, no, why this? Like, well, I think that this is a lucrative field for making money. If all you want to do is make money, you'd better know how to spin that in an interesting way. Mm-hmm. So I've long thought about doing a commercial where I show a business owner and they say, look, all I care about really is getting your money. But here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill you with customer service because I don't want you to go shop with the other guy. Right. I want your dollars coming to me. So if you have a complaint, if you have a problem, I'm going to address it. Because if your dollars start to go elsewhere, that hurts my bottom line. Yep. I start to think, oh gosh, well this person, I know they don't care about me personally, but I do know they're going to go to the ends of the earth to make sure the product works and that they're going to take care of me. And it sounds weird, and it can sound self-serving, but I'd rather go with that guy than the person who's really nice but has no customer service and does, they say they care, but they don't.
What is a story? Because we all have a story. Anybody that's worked in customer service, sales, anything to do with helping others or trying to serve others. What do you think is one of your top customer service stories? Is there one that
are you talking about a good one?
Something where you went out of your way. I mean, you totally went out of your way. It was an inconvenience to you,
right?
But you wanted to help someone, and you wanted to make sure that you took care of them.
Yeah.
So is there a story that comes?
There are a lot of them actually. In radio, when you're making commercials for people, and you want to get them right, because it does represent their business. Right. I remember this one person. They had an event, and it was a commercial that we were not making a lot of money off the radio station. It was a 30-second commercial. It was running on the talk radio station instead of the country station. And it was, when you have both radio stations, or all 4, or 10, or whatever it is, when you're in a big group, you can charge more for that. But it was only on one, that's of necessity going to be cheaper. But I had to redo this commercial for these people like 6 times, and it was my day. In fact, it was over the course of a couple of days. I would redo it, I would rewrite it, and I'm like, it's not quite right. But here's the thing, they will then either come back to us because we super served them, or they will tell other people that, hey, that's the place to go. And it's much better than telling somebody to buzz off.
Absolutely.
There are times in your career where you will have to tell people to buzz off if they're going to be abusive, or they're going to be negative, or if they're trashing you on social media or whatever. But if somebody's just genuinely trying to get their product right, don't diss that. Help them. Do the thing that you need to do, because that's going to be a future customer. That's going to be a person who's going to talk good about you. And do this. Ask them. Say, hey, look, we went through and we did this revision like 6 times. I'm really happy you're happy. If you could give us a good rating on social media, you can tell the whole story. It's totally cool. But as long as you just tell people, hey, this came out this way, then absolutely, it's perfectly fine. And I'll give you one that actually happened to me. And I have no problem using the names, because I actually ended up endorsing them for a while when I was back at the radio station, which was Frontier Motors. I bought a car from Frontier Motors that had been in, according to the Carfax, a very minor accident. It was a fender bender at most. Well, the person that sold it to them basically lied. And it was actually way more damage than anybody knew about, because a wheel bearing started going bad, and Frontier Motors was like, oh, that's weird. Well, we'll tell you what, just bring it back and we'll take care of it for you. And it happened again about maybe 500 miles later, which wheel bearings are supposed to last the life of the car, by the way. Right. And they fixed it again, and they went in and they said, wow, this was really horribly damaged. And I was thinking I was going to have to go back and forth with them, strike some sort of deal, like, can you cover half of the repair cost? What can you do? And they covered it all. They took care of it because they said it was our problem. And we should have caught that, and we're sorry that it happened to you. And I said, for the rest of my life, I am going to go out of my way to tell people how great Frontier Motors is. And I had friends who went and shopped at Frontier Motors. I endorsed them on the radio station for a while. That was customer service. And I think that's a big thing. If you're going to make a mistake, and if on social media you say something wrong or you lie, own up to it. People are going to like you a lot more rather than saying, oh, well, I was right in a certain kind of way. Don't do that baloney. Don't do that, well, you just didn't see the context of my statement. Apologize.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
do it.
So you always wonder how these companies stay in business because their prices are so marked up.
Yeah.
And one that I'll use for an example is, and I'll compare it. So you have Publix and let's say the local place, Winn-Dixie.
Yeah.
There's a difference in price, but there's a huge difference in service.
Yeah.
Huge difference in service. And this wasn't recent. This didn't happen to me. It was just a recent thing. It was actually somebody that I saw on Facebook had an encounter at a Publix where they had ordered a birthday cake. They went that day to pick up the cake, and whoever took the order wrote it down wrong or didn't give it to the right person, the right baker, or whoever it was. They just didn't get it. They didn't make the cake. So, he leaves, and they said, hey, don't worry about it. Give us your address. We'll take care of you. So the party starts, I think, on a Friday, let's say 5, 6 o'clock.
Right.
And the general manager of the Publix hand-delivered it to the home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's
cool. If you talk about service, stories like that they're just spread. And whether that just brings a point to what we talked about a little while ago is whether you're a good or bad person, whether you do business the right way or the wrong way, it's exposed.
Yeah.
And I love hearing stories like that. I loved hearing, the story with Frontier Motors.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really cool. And that's really what it's all about. It's all about taking care of your people so that your people take care of you.
Exactly. So that's kind of the flip side of social media. Talking about social media, it's not just about you having a presence on social media. And I do want to talk about the platforms a little bit and why you should be on certain ones or the other. But social media isn't just about what you put up. It's about what other people put up about you.
Correct.
Which can be difficult. One of the recommendations I would have actually is do Google Alerts for yourself. Something I did back when I was at Waterfront, when I was in the PR department, is I would set up a Google Alert for any time something went up on media, and this is more for like newspaper, radio, TV, all that kind of thing. Anytime something would go up on the internet about us, I would get an alert about it so I could see it. So do that for yourself and search for yourself, because you never know. Somebody may not have ever tagged you on something, but they could be talking about you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that a lot of businesses in today's world, we live in Pensacola, Florida, and it's a fairly smaller market compared to like a Miami, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, anything like that. So I think people may move a little slower in this smaller market.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of businesses in general, whether it's a big or small market, they just don't utilize social media platforms like they should be used. And that could really benefit your business if you use it the right way. I think at the Pensacola Athletic Center, I mentioned earlier in the podcast or in the stream that we were, it was a dying business. We had to rebrand, we had to remarket, we had to re-strategize everything and anything. I mean, we had 0 instructors for classes, 0 personal trainers. We had to hire staff. It was I don't want to say it was a mess because, the previous owner, she was an absolute sweetheart, but, we had a lot on our plate. So one thing that I took from moving to Pensacola is I took the hustle and bustle that other businesses were constantly grinding it out on social media. And you could see that they were putting up content, and they were putting up a lot of content. And the big part that really stuck with me is that the content there was a lot of quality to that content.
Yeah.
And because they were so consistent and they were constantly portraying the message and what they stood for, they got a lot of the community to really back them. And it was really cool because from what we took Pensacola Athletic Center, or PAC, we took it from a business. I kid you not, man. It was 200 members. Right now we sit right around 1,500 members, and this has only been 2 years. So because of what we've been doing and what we stand for, I feel like we've been getting a lot of support. And those that are watching, we really appreciate everything. We really do. I mean, we couldn't do what we do today without your guys' support.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
And that's a good realization too. The other thing about social media and being kind of a personality is realizing that your audience is everything.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite stories about rock star Ronnie James Dio was that he would stay for hours after every concert, sign everything a fan would put in his hands, talk to them as long as they wanted to talk for. There would be no end to it. Whereas the rest of the band would go on the tour bus and wait to leave. So Ronnie, even though in his later years wasn't going platinum anymore or gold, he would still do that, and fans would flock to those shows. That is actually one of my biggest regrets. I got to see him in 2007, and I thought I should go and see him after the show, and then he passed away not too long after that, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I do that? But that's a thing where you really need to remember who has you where you are. And there is no room for being rude to people unnecessarily anymore, because everybody has one of these. They have a little rectangle that can take pictures and video, and if you're rude to somebody,
it's exposed.
It's exposed.
It is exposed. Whether it's a police officer or a business, or I mean, we've just seen so many crazy stories in just the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Because everything's caught on video.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, it just is. And I think that's just something that we have to accept and almost embrace.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that I wanted to touch on really quick is, whenever you're trying to develop your brand yourself, whether it's your business, a personal account, you, how do I say this the right way?
It's tough, kind of on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you have to be the kind of person, as we've been saying all along, you have to be the kind of person that people want to follow, which is why the apologies are very important, which is why the not getting taken advantage of,
right,
and knowing how to not get taken advantage of and taking criticism well is really important. And the nice thing about all of this is you can take a step back and take a minute and think about what you're going to do. You don't have to react in that moment.
Correct.
In fact, that's one of the biggest things about social media for me is think about how you're going to react. Say your post out loud before you put it down. Not only is that going to help you avoid typos, which is important, and grammar mistakes, which, by the way, here's a little tip for you. Before you put up a post, put it into a Word document so that you can see the little squiggly red underlines, so you can see whether something's been misspelled or something's been added there. Spell check it.
I do that all the time.
Do it. It's worth it. And if you make a mistake, go back and correct it. You can edit on every platform. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can go back and you can correct things. It's worth it. In fact, even now on YouTube, you can re-upload audio onto an existing video without losing the number of views, which is really cool, by the way. You can change the descriptions as well. So do these things that will allow you to do things right the first time. It will also help you keep a cool head. So if you go onto the YouTube comment section of your video, if you go onto the comment section in a Facebook post or on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, take a minute. Think about how you want to respond and put yourself in the position of the other person. How would you respond if you got the response you're about to put? If it's that you would get angrier, maybe it's not the best thing to post. We've all been, I have been in, over here, hand is raised, Paul, right here, you see the thing above me, it says Paul, it's pointing to me. I have gotten into Facebook arguments, and I realized partway through one, I'm going to delete this. Not so that people will think that I'm good and this never happened, but because there's no reason to keep this going. There's no reason to keep this argument going. And I went on and tried to make good to the people then afterwards and realized, this isn't right. We shouldn't have been arguing like this, especially not in public.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do it. You're only going to be harming yourself, your reputation, and your relationship with others because it's social media. It's all about a relationship. And if you want to have a relationship, you're going to have to do the kind of things, you're going to have to treat people, golden rule, how you would want to be treated.
You're parenting them right now.
I am a little bit.
Paul is schooling you guys.
Well, it's something I've experienced firsthand.
Yeah.
In talk radio, I had to be the phone screener. Do you think that everybody was happy when they called into the talk radio station? Nope. A lot of them have very choice words for me. I've been told I'm going to hell a couple of times by callers.
Wow.
I've had very nasty 4-letter words thrown at me. And you know what you say? I'm sorry you feel that way. Maybe we can come to some sort of understanding. I'd love for you to keep listening. I hate for you to have this. I'm not going to change my mind if it's something that I feel really, really strongly about. But maybe we can agree to disagree and go on, be friends. You're going to do your best.
Let me ask you something. Okay,
Yeah.
so when I moved to Pensacola, there were two things that people told me. Hey, as someone who stands for something, as somebody who's running a business, whether you own a business, you manage a business, whatever it is, the customers and consumers that use that business, whether it's the services or anything, they see who you are,
Yeah.
and if they like you, they're going to support you. If they don't like you, they're not going to support you. So there's two things that people told me, especially in the South, to avoid. And one was politics, never talk about politics. And the other was college football. Don't talk about college football.
Oh my gosh.
So there's two things to avoid. In the South, if you run a business, you own a business, two things to avoid talking about, because they're always going to come back and...
It's a tough thing with the college football thing. Now, here's the thing. I'm from the North. I didn't understand the college football thing either. I didn't even think people followed college football because from in the North, you follow NFL teams. You know, follow the Eagles, or you follow Major League Baseball or hockey. Any of the major sports, it's always the major city teams. You know, for me, it was the Philadelphia Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the 76ers. I came down here and people had stickers for Alabama and LSU and Auburn. My wife is a huge Alabama fan. And it is Roll Tide. I remember I jokingly said to her, "Roll the Tide," one time, and she did not find that funny at all. So you do have to be careful with it.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to pick a team, I don't say pick a team based on whether it's a popularity thing or something, but if you're going to pick a team, know how to root for your team without being a jerk about it. Mm-hmm. I remember when the Tumor's Corner thing happened where the guy poisoned the trees. Everybody was horrified by that because as a fan, you have a friendly rivalry. You don't think to yourself, okay, yeah, it'd be really cool to go poison those old oak trees. Alabama people were horrified. LSU people were horrified. Florida, FSU people were all horrified because that's taking it way too far. But you have to know how to have a fandom without being a jerk about it.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. And you're probably going to get cornered. People are going to ask you, who do you root for? People are going to come in with Alabama shirts and LSU shirts. And it's going to be something you have to think about. And the politics thing, yeah, I think with, especially right now, because it's very popular to be political, and it's very easy to be, I avoid it, and I'm happy to talk with people about it. I remember I had an argument with a friend of mine years ago where I was just like, look, I just don't like this particular guy's policies. That's as far as I take it. And he did not accept that. He wanted me to like this person. He's like, you just don't like them because of X, X, and X. No, it's because I don't care about who they are as a person. I just don't like their policies. I'd have a beer with them, and it was unacceptable to them. And I said, look, we're going to have to disagree on this because it's not about the person's reason. It's about policies, and that's it. And I'm happy to discuss that with people, but I do not like to argue about it.
I think with the politics, you have Democrats, you have Republicans.
Yeah.
And if you've really been paying attention over the last few years,
yeah. How can you not?
Both are slowly dwindling, and the independent is slowly rising.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people, especially your younger generation, I think probably people 55 and under, I think they're just tired of the BS in politics.
And this is actually another point that I haven't raised yet, and we're getting close to the end, I promise you. Whenever it's two people, I like to keep it. I try to keep it under an hour.
Yeah.
Although this can last a lot longer than with a single person. So as I told people before, single person podcast, try to keep it under 20 minutes. Two people, you can probably talk forever.
Right.
But I am going to make podcasts for people whose politics, policies, whatever, I don't care for. I don't care. I'm here to help people because my job is to help people, give people an even voice.
Right.
And I love being able to put things out into the marketplace of ideas, and if something doesn't stand, it doesn't stand. It doesn't work. I'm okay with that. I am willing to help people whose policies and politics I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other part of that is I'm going to show them that it's not about that. It's
Correct.
I want to help you. And maybe through us working together and being friends, either I'll change my mind or you'll change yours. Or maybe we never will. And you have to be okay with that outcome. But you as a person who's going to podcast, maybe if you have a podcast that is very political, you're going to have people on with opposing viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to know how to deal with that. And avoid falling in the trap of just blasting people you don't like, because that doesn't last very long. And having come from the world of talk radio, that was very much how it was for a while, was it's fun to make fun of so-and-so, it's fun to blast this, it's fun to have a quip. Get out of the oh snap mentality where you post up something that is a quick, easy, make fun of, shut down the person on the other side. Because if you ask yourself honestly, if you have all the answers, you have to say no. And so just shutting someone down who's opposed to you politically, whichever direction it is not going to be fruitful for your mentality. You just perpetuate that, well, here's a sarcastic comment back to you, Mr. Person on the other side of the aisle, oh snap. Don't do it. It's ultimately not serving the conversation, and it's ultimately just harming the political landscape and ultimately harming your ability to think critically too.
Yeah, so kind of wrapping up, I think a few things that we touched on that you really want to stay focused on is number one, whether you want to do a podcast or you want to get on social media, whether you want to get a business account on social media, start. Yeah, start. Just start.
And let's talk about very shortly about the differences. So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and YouTube if you want to consider that a social media thing. Why would somebody be on one or the other? Pinterest is another one as well.
I think it depends on what you're doing or what you're trying to promote. If you're an artist, then you're going to utilize Pinterest, you're going to utilize Instagram, you'll probably utilize Facebook. I personally don't utilize Twitter because of where we live in a market. It's Pensacola, smaller market, so people aren't really on Twitter as much. I tend to utilize Instagram mostly, and then I also use Facebook for personal friends, through business, and just people I've met in the last few years. Sure. But let me get back on what I was going to say because
go ahead.
Because it's important because there's two types of people that I've come across when they want to start something. There's the people that'll kind of overanalyze everything, and then there's the people that say, "Who cares about everything? Let's just start." And it's good to be a little mixture of both. So I think if you're this type of person, and you see this type of person, and there's some stuff that you guys have in common, you can always do it together. It really does. It helps both of you guys. One is so focused on the system, and one is so focused on urgency, and I think that really helps with the business or the social media platform. It really does. But the big thing was just start and stay consistent when you start, and know that people are going to have negative comments to say. Don't take it personal. Take it with a grain of salt. Take it as feedback, and as you within time, you'll actually embrace it. Yeah, actually, that is one thing that was really handy coming out of talk radio is realizing that you're going to get people who disagree with you and don't like you, and they're still going to listen to you and follow you. It's weird, but people do it. So it doesn't make a difference, really, ultimately, if you have people who don't like you or disagree with you, as long as people trust you and know that you're going to listen to them back. That's, I think, the most important thing about social media is it is a social thing. It is a relationship. And with every relationship, you're going to have relationships with people that you argue with. You're going to have relationships with people who don't agree with you. And that's actually okay. It sharpens you as a person, and it's the kind of thing you should actually openly embrace. Now, I've missed a couple of things, my normal benchmarks in the podcast today. I actually missed one of them in the last one as well. I had it written down, but I got into the topic too quickly, which is we usually reach into the bottomless pit of topics for the topic of the day, but the topic kind of came up, and we're sorry, bottomless pit of topic. You're going to have to just suck it up. We didn't do the inspirational quote that doesn't suck because we've just been kind of giving inspirational stories the entire time. And I'm not going to do Podcast Roulette this afternoon or this morning actually when I post it,
because you need to, if you haven't watched it yet, just go watch the TED Talk with Simon Sinek.
I need to go watch the TED Talk with Simon Sinek.
It's fantastic. In fact, you know what? I've already done this one for the Podcast Roulette, but TED Talks, the TED Talks podcast, go just listen to the TED Talks podcast. Mm-hmm. They're absolutely fantastic. This has been Start Your Podcast Now, and you've heard the advice from Max as well. Start it now. Just do it. You just got to get started. Max, where can they find you on social media?
Find me on social media, guys. You can utilize my Instagram account probably the most, and it's at Max Gutierrez, MaxGutierrez.
Excellent. You can find me on iTunes and on Libsyn, which you're probably listening to it right now, and on YouTube, my new channel, Paul the Podcast Guy. I would ask that you subscribe and like below, which you've probably never been asked to do by a YouTube personality ever. You can also find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course my website, paulthepodcastguy.com, and you can email me at paul@paulthepodcastguy.com. And until next time, start your podcast now.